If you've been thinking for a while about working for yourself, you might have come to the conclusion that acquiring a really great existing business might be the fastest and best way for you to become an entrepreneur and start running your own business. Maybe you're leaving corporate America or leaving the military, even coming from another country to get a visa. This is Brian Stevens with the Thinking Outside the Box, and I'm having for you 13 business buyer basics. Now, these are just some real basic stuff out there, but it's important. Every single one of them is essential, but it's not all the things that you need to know. It could take you quite a while to really learn everything, but we see people at a disadvantage when they just don't have the knowledge, and we have created this series to help people like yourself start making the right decisions and focusing on getting what they want and hope to accomplish. First thing I recommend to people is to clearly establish what features you need and want. In fact, I might even go back one step further and say, why do you want to own your own business? Why do you want to work for yourself? Because that'll help you understand the features that you need and want. You want flexibility, you want creativity maybe, or you want a good solid income coming in, or you want assurance that you're not going to get laid off on the next go round on the economy, or what have you. What are the things that you're looking for? What are the things that you need? And what are those things that you want? You want to work in a certain particular industry, or maybe you definitely don't want to work in other industries. In fact, some of the most effective people come with kind of an open mind going, well, I was thinking of running this, but I'd also be open to some other good ideas. And more times than not, they find there's some great things they never considered. But without having those features and the needs and the wants that you've got set down in place, it makes it more difficult for you to clarify all those issues. So you can look at a business and go, I want to have time with my kids at home. So I always thought that running a sports bar might be great, but I realized that probably the time that I need to be around or worrying about the business are those hours that I want to be home with my kids having some fun. So maybe you put off that sports bar for another decade or so to come, and you look at some other things. Think through all those issues. Not only the needs and wants, the real serious stuff like making sure your schedule fits and that it fits a budget, etc., which we're going to go into in a minute, but also think through what passion, what interests, and what dreams you have. It's okay to dream a little bit, and in fact, dream a whole lot. And we find that when people are excited and passionate and interested in what they're doing, it's not just some sort of fun thing to say, hey, follow your dreams. It gives people that energy to keep on getting creative and finding new ways and new solutions to make their business even better, to give them more time. And there's going to be situations when businesses are probably daunting and demanding and hot and sweaty or frustrating or what have you. But when you're excited about it, when you're passionate about it, people, you yourself will find, and people find that they have a lot more energy to get through those hard times, cross over those hurdles, and start working on making the business done well for them. So write down what your passions are. Think back what your interests are. If you can't remember those, if they've gotten a little dead to you in terms of over the years thinking through with them, talk with a friend, a spouse, a colleague, or something like that, and ask them their perspective, what they see in you. You'd be surprised what a lot of people see in you going, I always thought you were great with people, and I love the way you innovate and create, and all these different things might come to you to awaken some of that information. But spend some time and put this stuff in writing, not only your wants and your needs, but your passion, your interests, and your dreams. Now let's get down to some other basics. You need to know how much you can budget, right? And so in order to buy a business, you usually have to have money. There's a whole series of people with buying businesses for no money down. That's certainly not what we see over the last 2 decades when we've been in business doing this. We realize that people have to have a budget. There's ways of pulling money out of your 401k or your IRA, actually keeping the money in that whole system and creating a corporation within that network. We can help you with information and ideas on how to use your 401k or IRA for the down payment or the acquisition of a business without having to pull it out and pay penalties and taxes. Also keep in mind, and acquiring an existing business is advantageous because it minimizes risk, but there's nothing that eliminates risk. You can wake up tomorrow, hop in your car, and end up in a car accident, right? Things happen all the time. But be aware that when you're taking that money, there is that element of risk of, hey, things could go wrong, things could go upside down. Part of our training and our experience is to help you fortify yourself so that you don't have to worry about a high level of risk. But we always encourage you to keep in mind that there is a reality that anything can happen, including there's a risk in not going for the business of your dreams and living a whole lifetime of doing something you really didn't like just so you could retire. think through all the different things, but realize there's elements of there. Understand the minimum of what you need to take home. Maybe you have a spouse working at home. This is a good time, if you haven't already done it, to create a very specific and detailed budget. If you've got a mortgage, how much you need for the mortgage, how much for the car payments, how much for getting the kids to school if the kids are in school, how much for utilities, etc. And then if you have a working spouse, you can sort of take that money and say, okay, here's all this stuff, and we still have left over another $2,000 a month or $1,500 a month. And then you might want to say, and I also want to put away $1,000 a month in savings. So that gives you an idea of how much minimal that you have to make in the business. Because when you see a business, you're going to look at it and you're going to be able to verify what it's been making over the last year or two or three. And that's an indication of how it might do in the future if you run it the right way. But it's no guarantee that it's going to continue on in the future that way. But it gives you a good idea to say, hey, at least this is making $70,000, and I only need about $30,000 to come flush in my home, and this business is actually more likely to be making over $150,000. So I feel pretty good about that, at least to start off with. But know your numbers. Don't estimate them. Sit down, spend some time with your spouse, your family, a friend, a good financial advisor, and write out your budget and take a very close look at that. Now, we've talked about your wants and needs. We talked about your desires, your passion, your dreams. I play into that big because it really is true that you should find things that hit you in the heart. We've talked about how much money you can afford to spend and not a penny more. You need to write a number down so that even if you found that magical dream business and it was one penny over that number, you wouldn't go there. Find that number. That's harder than it sounds, perhaps. And also understand the minimum that you need to make. And with that, you can create, hey, here's what I'm going to live with. Here's what I want to do. Here's what my lifestyle is going to look like. And create that. Maybe make a one-page summary, bulletproof or bullet format or something like that. Maybe a couple pages if you need it. And write that down and post it up and say, I'm going to live with this charter of acquisition. Write down your objectives and create it. Okay? Now, one other step, and you can be doing this already. This is not necessarily in order of when you need to do this, but create your advisory team. What's an advisory team, right? Well, you got an idea. You need somebody that really knows law, legal issues, the type of law that is geared around the transition of small business ownership. Same thing for financial, an accountant. But make sure that these people, these professionals, just because they're professionals, do they really have experience in helping the transition of small businesses or businesses in general? I shouldn't say any are small, because I really don't think there is any small in business in reality. Everybody works really hard to make their money when they own a company. But make sure that people are relevant in those issues. You might find a lender or a few lenders to work with. You might work with an intermediary. Some people refer to them as business brokers, but there's some higher end individuals that really bring a lot of services all in one and a lot of wisdom. A valuation specialist, if you want to confirm the value of the price you're offering for the business. Maybe even a lease coach or somebody that helps you negotiate the terms of the lease. And there might be many others, especially if you're looking at a unique business that maybe has some sort of licensing, etc. I'd even advise that you work with some people to help you create go forward business plan for your business. So create this advisory team. It doesn't have to be heavy-handed. You don't have to spend a ton of money. And in fact, when you're working with some people that have experience in the industry already, quite often they're more affordable because they're not having to read through an asset purchase agreement or create something from scratch that they've never done before. They already know the sort of stuff, and they can offer you some value in saving time and maybe even be more cost-effective as well. Now, remember that charter of acquisition, that thing that was summarizing your needs and wants and your dreams and your budget and how much you need and all that sort of stuff. Give that to your advisory team. You should already have a copy of it posted up by your bathroom mirror or in your kitchen or something like that. But give this to your advisory team. And the reason why you want to give this to the advisory team is because as you start to search for business and you find those businesses that are kind of exciting, like, yeah, I like this. This is really great. This is when you go to one or more of them and you say, hey, I'm really thinking about this distribution company. I think it fits my goals and I'm really excited. It's a little more money than I was going to budget and it's not making quite enough money, but I think I can make up for it. The business owner told me, hey, don't worry about it. And what do you think? And they should be there to say, hey, look, You wrote this charter down sometime back. You gave it to me, and I'm telling you, you're missing 6 of the 12 key elements that you wrote down. I think this is a no-go. Up to you finally, but I'm going to hold you accountable, and I'm not signing off that I agree with it because I don't see it fitting your needs and wants and meeting the charter guidelines unless you can tell me otherwise why that would be. Okay, on the other hand, they might say, this really does seem to be pretty good. It doesn't hit everything perfectly, but it sounds really, really up your alley. Are you excited about it? You might say, yeah. And then you ask them, well, help me get this thing rolling. Okay, that's really important. And a lot of people do not create the charter of acquisition, but I highly recommend it. Okay, get SBA pre-qualified. You're going to find that maybe only 10% of the businesses that are on the marketplace are SBA pre-qualified. You're also going to find that there's a market for businesses that are already not, or rather are not even on the market. And so if you go in being SBA pre-qualified, it gives you an advantage point to say, hey, I want to take this to my bank and see if it makes any sense. Now, you might have to make an offer before they're going to give you all the paperwork. So you need to make sure that that's in a way that's framed so that you can go out and do all that sort of thing. But if you get yourself SBA pre-qualified, and they're going to not pre-approve you because they don't have the business and the details and all the facts. But pre-qualified means you got the type of credit they like, you got some money saved up. They'll even give you a good idea of what kind of budget you might be able to afford as well. And it's really, really great. Here's another thing about SBA lenders. There's preferred lender providers. There's a couple different levels of them when it comes to relationship with the SBA. Keep in mind that the SBA is a government program that's just doing a guarantee for the banks, and the banks can overlay their own requirements, demands, etc., and so they might be very different from one another. I recommend you go make friends with 2 or 3 with a good, solid reputation. If you need a list of some of the better banks that have done a lot of good for the clients that we work with, you again can reach out to our company. But within your network, go out and find some banks. Some are regional, some are local, some are national, some are statewide, some are brokers, meaning that they can go out and reach out to any 1 or 2 or 3 of hundreds of banks in the portfolio and find that right bank if you're having a hard time getting matched up. Okay, search the traditional and the innovative places. This in itself is a whole series of education and training. But what I mean by the traditional places are the things like going onto the internet and typing business for sale, and you're going to find all these things that pop up. Some of them have collected money from brokers and business sellers for so long, they have this high level of information that pops up on the internet. There's businesses for sale, businessbroker.net, BizQuest, BizBuySell, BBF, MLS, on and on and on. So you're going to find some information, but it's really cluttered up with a whole lot of stuff. You're going to see them trying to sell you franchises and how to buy this and how to do that. And you're not necessarily going to get all the data you want, but they're also a really good resource for starting your search. The other thing is that you might start to look for businesses where the owner doesn't yet have it on the market or doesn't have it in those traditional places for sale. You can go about doing that by contacting a local association if you're in the industry, like the Restaurant and Hospitality Association if you want to acquire an existing restaurant perhaps, or you could go to your local chamber of commerce, and usually around where people live in a metropolitan area there's several that you could join, and each one has different members, and somewhere if you spread the word out there might be somebody saying, hey, I know somebody's thinking about selling a business just like what you're asking, they haven't gotten around to putting it on the marketplace, but it might be good. Then there's that direct effect. You call up and start marketing yourself if you want to do that. That's just the beginning of some of the key innovative places, but look for the business out there. And then pick a business with good sales and numbers. Remember I said that only a minority of the businesses that are on the marketplace are good enough for SBA lending, and if you have the ability to get an SBA loan, you should really consider looking first at the businesses. These are the ones that have really good books and records. They're also going to get vetted by the SBA, so the SBA is going to check it out, make sure that they're all the things that they say, so you're going to have an extra set of eyes looking at it. And you're going to want to get a lot of stuff. You say, hey, give me the taxes and give me this and give me that. Most business owners are not going to share that with you unless you've made an offer. So they're going to want to know, hey, I don't even know if I'm going to sell it to you. We don't even have an agreed on a price, and you want all my private information. I've given you a little bit, but that's all I'm going to do. So you might create an offer. You might create a letter of intent or an LOI, a memorandum of understanding, MOU. For a lot of businesses under a couple $1 million, $5 million in general is what we see, but people do all kinds of stuff. You can go to an asset purchase agreement. don't get frightened by an asset purchase agreement. If you write any of these things right, they're going to say this is contingent upon my total satisfaction of due diligence. And if I'm not satisfied within a certain time frame, I can get out of this. And that I'm going to write up and make sure I get SBA funding. And if I can't get SBA funding, I'll get my escrow money deposit back, and I'll do all this other thing. So realize that you might get to the point where you need to create an offer, but write the right contingencies. There's a handful of contingencies, and there's better ways to write them and poorer ways of writing them. So clearly write them. Think through the fairness of everything. You, again, should be running through an intermediary or even an attorney to help you write these things. Here's another tip out there. When you go to an attorney, make sure you know what you want, because you're going to be paying a lot of money per hour in most cases. So don't just give them the information on a business and say, go negotiate it with their attorney and tell me if I bought the business or not. And I'm being kind of generalized, but I've seen attorneys trying to protect their clients and do the right thing and get all these things done. And they have this large litany of things that need to be done. All of a sudden they come out with a $15,000 or $20,000 bill, but they have no business because it's all been blown apart between two attorneys and two egos and two smart people trying to protect their clients. Do your analysis, do your research, and be specific about what you need the attorney to do. Say, hey, I'm kind of lost in this area. I feel pretty good about the price, and I want you to defend that. And I need some help on writing a contingency that makes me able to get out if the due diligence fails or the loan goes away or I can't get the right type of lease. But be as specific as you can. Make their job easier so they're not just trying to run everything and renegotiate your deal, but also make sure you're using the professional support that you need. Okay, when you get to the point of getting an offer going and you've come to that point where the seller and you have agreed to the price and the terms, again, a whole nother series we need to talk about, but there's price and there's terms, when I'm going to get paid, what do you need me around for, how long will I need to give you training, what's my exclusivity in terms of getting back into the business, etc. All these other factors. You need to conduct excellent due diligence, okay? So a couple different tips on excellent due diligence. One of them is to make sure that the people that are going to help you with due diligence are around. So I use a famous example because I've seen this happen at least twice in the last 2 years where the buyer made an offer on a business in the beginning of April, and then they go to their accountant saying, hey, I got 2 weeks to do due diligence, and the accountant says, I am up to my ears working 20 hours a day, and when I get done with this crazy stuff on April 15th, my wife and I are heading off to the Bahamas. I'm not answering a phone until May. Okay, so realize that your partners have to have schedules. So check with who's going to help you out, make sure they're available, and then work on, hey, I want to put an offer together on a business and offer a due diligence list. What do I need to see? 5 years of taxes, 5 years of profit and loss statements, inventory lists, balance sheets, etc. Help them put that together and make sure that they're available so that after you've had your first review of everything and sorted it all out and you have your really intelligent questions, you can go to them and ask for, what am I missing? What do I need to know? What do you see that I'm not even beginning to see? All right. Conduct excellent due diligence. Okay. The last thing I'd say is to go back and check out one of our earlier videos on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and type in BuyBizUSA. And there's one, I call this number 13, but check out the 11 essentials. And that shows you how to start looking at businesses that are on the marketplace and getting a good idea of does this even make sense? You can see some of the little notes on the slide, but we're not getting into the 11 essentials because it's already recorded and on YouTube for you. Just type in BuyBizUSA. Okay, this is Brian Stevens with the Thinking Outside the Boss, and this was the 13 Business Buyer Basics. But if you want to reach out to us, our website is BuyBizUSA. You can type into the BuyBizUSA.com and find phone numbers, emails, all that sort of context. But you can also call us at 833-BUYBIZ-1. That's the number 1. That is the same thing as typing in 833-289-2491. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We're at the website BuyBizUSA. You can even type in biz at BuyBizUSA.com, biz at BuyBizUSA.com, and we will try to get back to you as soon as possible. Look, I'd love to hear from you. I want to know if you're making the dreams happen and making great things occur, whether you're having a great experience, whether you're having a bad experience. Give us some feedback on opportunities and things that we can share to make these type of series better for you and even help you on your own personal process. We work with people from around the country. and actually from around the world. Also, if you're looking to get in the industry of business sales and acquisition, we'd love to chat with you as well, too. We have a special program for professionals that understand business, accountants and consultants and ex-corporate refugees, ex-military, and people from around the whole planet. So blessings to you. Turn your worthy dreams into valuable legacies. And remember, when you buy a business, you get to begin a dream and start your own incredible legacy. Thank you. Bye-bye.